In the Muslim world, the real problem is status quo and anti-status quo. To a tiny elite that has usurped our resources, that does not represent the people, that is undemocratic, which has taken away people's rights, it has imposed an unjust system, puppets of the United States, and these puppets do not represent the feeling of the people, which is what you're seeing in the entire Middle East. It's not because in the Western countries the perception is that in the Muslim world there's this fight going on between liberals and fundamentalists. As the Arab Spring has shown, that is not the case. The case is people want the same rights, the same democratic rights, the same freedom as people in the Western countries, which is what our real struggle is. Our struggle is not some tussle going on between us and fundamentalists. Yes, like in the West, we too have our extremists. You have your extremists in the West here, we have our extremists. In America, they have their fundamentalists. But it says, you don't bomb them to eliminate them, you fight extremism and fundamentalism through intellect. If you want to defeat fundamentalism, it is never through guns, but through education, through intellect, as was done by my hero, who I think was the greatest Muslim brain in the last 500 years, the great Iqbal. No one damaged extremism, fundamentalism, narrow-mindedness more than Iqbal. But he could do it through his intellect, through his education, through his complete understanding of his religion, philosophies, and that was his greatness. And Iqbal was the founding father of Pakistan, the ideological founding father of Pakistan, whereas the political founding father was Jinnah. So for the Muslim youth, for the Pakistani youth, if we are looking for what to follow, what Islam to follow, then there is no greater role model than Iqbal, because he is the great inspiration. He was above sectarianism. He was neither a Shia or a Sunni. They understood the vastness, the philosophy of a spiritual life, which is what Iqbal preached. So anyway, for the Muslims, for the young people, all of you sitting here, if you want to know what Islam to follow, it's Iqbal. He was, as I said, a genius who understood depths which I don't fully claim to understand Iqbal, because Iqbal is an ocean. But what little I understood of him inspired me more than anything ever I've read in my life. And for the West, for the people in the West, the book attempts to explain this war on terror, that this war on terror is producing terrorists. It's producing extremists. It's a war which is not curbing terrorism. Terrorism will increase because anti-Americanism is going to increase. The more bombing, the more collateral damage, the more militants. So every year we have seen an increase in militancy. We heard early on this year, the American Supreme Commander Panetta General Petraeus, announcing that the surge had worked in Afghanistan, that soon they will be in control of Afghanistan, and that because of the surge they will get the Taliban on the dialogue table. In fact, what we have seen, that the surge has completely failed, and that Afghanistan, there has been more violence this year than ever before. So clearly, what has this idea of somehow fighting terrorism with bombs, drone attacks, and military has failed. And I always maintained that there was never any military solution, either in Pakistan's tribal areas or in Afghanistan, and of course time has proved that. Now there needs to be a different strategy. If this war has to be won, it has to be won not by bombs, but by dialogue, by getting everyone on the table, by understanding that what are the causes which led to terrorism. Unless you understand the causes, this war cannot be won. In Pakistan's tribal area, and this is, I finish my little talk with, in Pakistan's tribal area, just to make you understand, what we have done is, we created the Pakistan Taliban through military operations. There were no militant Taliban in Pakistan. In 2004, under American pressure, General Musharraf capitulated and started military operations. It took 2 years of military operations and collateral damage to produce what became the Pakistani Taliban. And what were we doing? What was Pakistan Army doing in the tribal areas? Same as what the Americans were doing through drone attacks and in Afghanistan. Bombing villages through drones, through F-16s, helicopter gunships, artillery. And when you bomb villages, you can fool some people by saying that you were only targeting militants. But whenever you bomb villages, as when I was growing up, in Vietnam, whenever you bomb villages, you cause massive collateral damage. So the more the collateral damage, the more we saw an increase in militancy. Where there was no militant Taliban in Pakistan, today Pakistan has 30 different Taliban groups operating. And we are not winning the war, neither are the Americans winning the war. In Pakistan, the cure lies in starting a truth and reconciliation with our own tribal people. In the tribal areas of Pakistan, and it is the most unique place in the world, where every man is armed and knows how to fire a gun, use a gun or weapons. It is the only place in the world where every village is like the ancient Greek city-states. They are autonomous. They have never accepted any central authority. And so they do not accept any foreign occupation. And throughout history, they have resisted every invader that came this part of the world. And the northwest frontier of Pakistan, the entire frontier, has seen more foreign invaders and conquerors than probably any other place in the geography of the world. So here existed these tribes which resisted every conqueror. And they were always going to fight the moment the Pakistan Army went in. Our great leader, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, in 1948, in order to know how to deal with the tribal areas of Pakistan, he asked Lord Cunningham, who was the governor of the frontier province during the time of the British. He was in England, he called him to Pakistan, and he asked his advice, what should Pakistan do with the tribal areas? Lord Cunningham told Jinnah that as long as the Pakistan Army military was in the tribal areas, the tribes will resist and there will be no peace. So Jinnah in 1948 pulled back the Pakistan Army from the tribal areas. And we never ever had any trouble throughout in our history, and the tribal area was the most peaceful part of Pakistan. So in 2004, when General Musharraf sent the troops in, that was the beginning of Pakistan getting into a war which we could never win. And because I'm probably the only politician who had been throughout the tribal areas, who had written a travel book on this, I tried my best in the parliament to convince the government not to send the army in. Unfortunately, the Pakistan military elite, as well as the Pakistan political elite, had no idea what they were doing. And so what we have now see is 140,000 Pakistani troops stuck in the tribal areas and not winning the war. So my proposal is that to get out of this mess, first we should have free and fair elections. Only free and fair elections will bring forward a sovereign government, a government that is credible. Only a credible government will then open dialogue with our own tribes. So in the tribal areas, there are 1 million armed men. So to win the war, we will win the 1 million armed men to our side. And this is, I'm assuming that Tehreek-e-Insaf government will be in inshallah power. So we will win, once we win the people of the tribal areas to our side, we will then be able to isolate the real terrorists. So what is the threat to the West? Al-Qaeda. What is the threat to, for instance, India? The old jihadi groups which were created during the Afghan jihad. So in order to win the war, once we win the tribal people to our side, we will then be able to isolate the real terrorists. And we will then, through a process of truth and reconciliation, either ask them to disarm, or we will be able to at least not allow them to conduct any terrorism from Pakistani soil, which is what basically everyone wants. So that's how we will win the war, but we cannot win the war right now by bombing villages, causing collateral damage, and rather than winning these people, tribal people, to our side, we are actually pushing them towards the militants and making them into terrorists. Because amongst the people who are conducting operations in Pakistan or who are called the Taliban, the foot soldiers are provided by our own tribal people. And the same is in Afghanistan. If the Americans do not hold dialogue by first having a ceasefire, then holding a dialogue and getting all the neighbors of Afghanistan onto the table, having a government of consensus, this is the only solution. Otherwise, there is no solution in Afghanistan, because Afghanistan has a history. The British, above all, I don't know what they are doing in Afghanistan, because they haven't read their own history, that they fought 3 wars in Afghan wars, and all of them, they have plenty of material to know what happened to them. So why they are stuck in Afghanistan, I don't know. Why they're not advising the Americans what to do, because they are stuck like the Americans, and I can give you in writing here that this war is not going to end, because it'll go on. All the Taliban have to do to win is not to lose. That's all. They just have to indulge in guerrilla warfare and keep going like this, and this will go on. But can the US sustain it now? Given the economic meltdown or the economic crisis coming in the US, can they sustain this war? For how long? And to what end? What is victory? What would be victory for Obama? What will he say? What will it take to say that he's won the war in Afghanistan? Would it be that if he says that Karzai regime has been propped up, would that be victory? I find that they have no idea what victory is. It's like this famous line in Alice in Wonderland that if you don't know where you're going, every road takes you there. So I look forward to your questions.
Mr. Rahman, can I request people to please switch off their mobiles? 20 minutes of question and answer to allow people to have maximum time for book signing. After 20 minutes of Q&A, and please limit your questions to one question and no suggestions and statements that people get to ask questions. Thank you. And raise your hands and a mic will be brought to you.
Shakib Rashid from Carbon Efficient. As usual, मैं अपना प्रश्न उर्दू में करूँगा, उर्दू में आपसे बात करिए। सबसे पहले तो मुबारकबाद आपको इस चीज़ की देता हूँ कि आपके पास अल्लाह के फजल से ब्रेन बहुत बड़ा है, नौजवान यूथ आपके पीछे बहुत बड़ा है। लेकिन एक चीज़ जो कि मेरा ओपिनियन गलत भी हो सकता है कि पाकिस्तान के अंदर जो पॉजिटिव फोर्सेस हैं उनको आपको साथ लेके चलना बहुत जरूरी है। मुझे कभी कभी यूँ लगता है कि जो पाकिस्तान की अदर पॉजिटिव फोर्सेस हैं आप उनके साथ थोड़ा सा रवैया सख्त रखते हैं। और एक चीज़ आकर मैं आपको ये कहना चाहता हूँ,
पॉजिटिव फोर्स बता भी दें कौन सी है।
जैसे कि आपकी पार्टी के अंदर बेशुमार टैलेंट है, जिस तरीके से जमात इस्लामी के अंदर और पाकिस्तान मुस्लिम लीग के अंदर बेशुमार टैलेंट है, कुछ गंदी चीज़ों को निकालते हैं, मैं उनकी बात नहीं कर रहा, लेकिन उन पॉजिटिव फोर्सेस के साथ आपका मिलना बहुत जरूरी है। दूसरी बात, जैसे कि हम यहाँ यूके में बरतानी में रहते हैं, यहाँ पे एमएटी के सिस्टम की तरह मुझे लगता ये है कि आप लगता ये है कि आपको वो काम जो मिनिस्टर से करना चाहिए वो आप प्रेस रिपोर्ट के साथ करना चाहते हैं। आज पाकिस्तान का हाल ये हो गया है कि आपको बड़ा सख्त रवैया उन दुश्मनों के खिलाफ लेना है जो कि मिनिस्टर के बगैर नहीं हो सकता, ठीक है ना? एक सख्त
इन्होंने कहा कि पॉजिटिव फोर्सेस के साथ मिलना चाहिए, जिसमें एक पॉजिटिव फोर्स इन्होंने बताई नून लीग। नून लीग की सबसे बड़ी खासियत यह है कि वो पैसा बनाना जानते हैं, और सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि नवाज शरीफ के पास यहाँ अरबों रुपया पड़ा हुआ है। अगर उनके साथ मिल गए तो मुझे बताएं तब्दीली कैसे लेके आएंगे। यानी अगर हम नवाज शरीफ के साथ मिले तो मैं, हालांकि मेरी दोस्ती होती थी नवाज शरीफ से, लेकिन मुझे ये बताएं कि अगर मैं उसके साथ मिलता हूं तो मैं सबसे पहले 2 कानून पास करेंगे। अपने एसेट्स डिक्लेयर करो। क्या वो अपने एसेट्स डिक्लेयर कर सकते हैं? جو لیڈر اپنے ایسٹس نہیں ڈکلیئر کر سکتا وہ نہ ٹیکس اکٹھا کر سکتا نہ کرپشن ختم کر سکتی ہے. جو کرپشن نہیں ختم کر سکتا اور ٹیکس نہیں اکٹھا کر سکتا وہ پاکستان کو اس دلدل میں سے نہیں نکال سکتا. Yeah, go on.
Lovely to see you here. It's nice to know. Mr. Khan. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Lovely to see you here. Nice to know that you want to talk about the politics of Pakistan. I am a British Pakistani. I was born 11 years ago in this country. I now have a grandchild in this country. From the British Pakistani point of view, I want to know when Pakistan is going to be safe for our future generations to go back and visit it as a happy country where we can go shopping without worrying about bombs, where we can go eat out in safety and not worry about all these terrorists, so-called, the Taliban, who have only appeared through Western influences. The question is, what is your party, Tehreek Insaf? What can you do for us British?
Well, it's a very short answer. You said how long you'll have to wait. Answer is not long until the next election when Tehreek Insaf inshallah comes to power. Let me say, look. Now, serious answer. But by the way, that was serious, that inshallah Tehreek Insaf will be in power. But number one, whoever is going to change Pakistan and make it into the Pakistan it should have been, number one has to deal with terrorism. I already explained to you how it would be done. We have to get out of this war. There is no hope, there is no future of this war, and Pakistan is sinking. Pakistan is sinking into a frenzy of fanaticism. The longer we stay in this war, the more fanatics, the more polarization. It's so, at the moment in Pakistan, you cannot have a debate on Islam. A governor gets shot for saying something which would not even have made news before the war. And the man who shoots him becomes a hero. Imams in mosques have been killed for simply saying that suicide bombing is un-Islamic. Javed Ghamdi, a great scholar, a friend of mine, has had to leave Pakistan and go to Malaysia because so scared is anyone to talk about anything that could be perceived un-Islamic. So we have to change this. You've got, and number one, we must have a sovereign government in Pakistan. It is not either in the American interest. It's certainly a disaster for Pakistan to have a government that is perceived to be puppets of the US. You can't have a government which is perceived to be a stooge of the US. This new colonialism, where you try to rule a country through your puppets, the days are over. In the entire Middle East, there's a reaction against it. In Pakistan, we have seen a puppet not only fail the United States, but certainly has failed the people of Pakistan. So a sovereign government is necessary to fight terrorism. Only a sovereign government will be able to hold dialogue, will not attract the jihad against it. When the Taliban or militants attack, they always say two things. We are fighting America and its agents. So you can't be, the moment you cease to be the agent, this fanaticism will start subsiding. Then we need truth and reconciliation, we need rule of law, we need de-weaponization in Pakistan. We should not allow any militant group in our country. And de-weaponization, strong rule of law, a proper police system, and you will be able to go shopping without any worries. Then the only thing left would be worrying about dengue fever. And of course, floods, but floods also I'll come to later on. Go on.
Sir, you were the first politician in Karachi के मदारी में, sorry, अताब हुसैन, उनको expose करने की कोशिश की थी. अभी recently media ने उनको expose किया. Why was PTI very quiet on that issue?
Media did not expose Altaf Hussain. only Zulfikar Mirza came out against Altaf Hussain. But I'll explain to you, why did PTI not jump in and start attacking the MQM? There's a reason. Now please understand this. Anyone who is going to bring peace in Pakistan has to start a process of reconciliation. Tehreek-e-Insaf should be the party that should be a party for everyone. It should be a party for Pashtuns, Punjabis, Balochis, Sindhis, and Urdu speaking. At the moment, what has happened in Karachi, and so you must understand, three political parties, the MQM, Urdu speaking, ANP, Pashtuns, and People's Party was represented largely by Balochs. All three parties in Karachi have their militant wings. It's not one party anymore. All the three main parties, all sitting in government, all allies, have their militant wings killing each other. And this is what has come out in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court hearing has said, what has come out is that all three parties patronized their political wings and protected their killers. So if Tehreek-e-Insaf one day has to bring peace in Karachi, it must be above this. We should be impartial. We should not be a party of any one particular ethnic group, because otherwise we will not be effective in bringing a national reconciliation.
I'm from Kashmir, I'm not from Pakistan, I'm from India, occupied Kashmir. I just went through a few pages of your book, and in your very first page you mentioned Kashmir in the first chapter. My question is, inshallah, if you are the next president of Pakistan, what will be the solution for the Kashmir conflict? A very practical plea, and I would also like to ask you, if you become the president, to kindly leave Kashmir alone. That is what our message is to Pakistan. Your comments, please. Thank you.
First of all, let me just say that I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'll just tell you exactly what should be done, because I'm very clear that Pakistan should stand behind the rights of the people of Kashmir, their democratic and their human rights. We should always stand by them, and any negotiations should always start with the UN resolution. But the time has now come that we should have a new relationship with India. And that relationship should be based on both countries deciding that no more are we going to allow our intelligence agencies to conduct sabotage or militant operations in each other's domain. You see, what is now happening is that India has almost 600,000 troops in Kashmir. And India blames insurgents from Pakistan for why it has so many soldiers. The people of Kashmir are suffering because of this. The main problem is the human rights abuses. Whenever you have an army in civilian areas, no matter what army it is, it's going to cause massive human rights abuses. So when an army has been there for 20 years, there's massive human rights abuse in Kashmir. So Pakistan and India, once they decide, no more conducting espionage and militant operations in each other's soil. Pakistan is blaming India for what is happening in Balochistan. Pakistan blames India for funding that movement, which is for asking for liberation from Pakistan. And similarly, India blames Pakistan for any terrorist attack on its soil. I think this era should go. All our differences we should sort out on the dialogue table. There is no military solution to either Kashmir or to settle our differences with India. And it is taking a heavy toll of both the countries, especially Pakistan, but also of India, because 600,000 troops in Kashmir is costing India a lot of money. And I was just reading that one of the subcontinent houses the greatest number of poor people in the world. So the answer lies to your question is, we should promote dialogue with India. We should tell India that yes, there's a principled stand on Kashmir, and we But above all, the rights, democratic and human rights of people of Kashmir should be protected. But we will not interfere in Kashmir through any means at all. We will just back them politically. The struggle in Kashmir should now become a political struggle for their rights, and that is the only way forward. So far, our policies have brought negative results, and especially to the people of Kashmir.
I'm interested to know that all these tribes that live on the border, northwestern border, Noman, Afridi, Zorzais, Zorzais, and Masood, now that they're going to join that side, or have become Taliban of their own sort, and now that we've killed so many people, I mean, in military action, the women, children, everybody, and the medicine has proved to be actually worse than the illness itself, the military action. When you come into power, what would you actually do? What would you actually do? So yes, so what would you actually do? What would you offer? That they would say that fine, that we will actually come to your side. I mean, now that the women, children, everybody has been killed. And one more suggestion, actually, that is just okay. Just like we have Shahid Afridi in our cricket team, the whole of Afridi tribe has become a sports-loving tribe. Why don't we actually go in those places and find, I mean, we just hunt the talent, and so then people with CVs or voices or other people, they can too contribute to the country.
Are you saying use cricket to bring peace in the tribe? No. Look, for a start, this has nothing to do with, unless and until we stop military operations, there will never be peace. And the way to, and your second point is, when a new government comes in, a sovereign, independent government comes into Pakistan, it will be able to open dialogue with the tribes. They will talk. I already, by the way, you might not know this, the party that is most popular in all the tribal agencies is Tehreek-e-Insaf, and all the surveys have showed that it's by far the most popular party, only because from day one we opposed military operations, and clearly military operations have devastated the area. So we will have to have a truth and reconciliation. In other words, compensate people for what they've lost. The tribal area has taken a terrible battering. So it'll be truth and reconciliation with our own people, win them over, withdraw the army, and whatever terrorism is, we will use our own tribal people to deal with it.
Councillor, thank you very much for coming along here and launching your book. I'm sure your book will be very interesting. My question is very simple, and I just want to ask you whether it's possible that you can set up your shadow cabinet, that we're supposed to know who's responsible for what, because at the moment I'm just saying you are answering for all the questions. If there's economic questions, industry questions, education questions, I think better to have a shadow cabinet that we're supposed to know and we can ask them the questions. And secondly, I will ask you that it's better that if you can spread your message throughout Pakistan, in other four provinces as well. I understand you are having popularity in Punjab, but we don't know about this in Balochistan and Salat and Pakhtunkhwa. And I hope you will answer my question.
Tehreek-e-Insaf was already in the last elections at 22%. The second, according to the IRI survey, we were the #2 party in Pakhtunkhwa. This year, Tehreek-e-Insaf is by far the #1 party there, and in polls, we are leading everywhere. But you're absolutely right, Tehreek-e-Insaf is a party for the whole of Pakistan, not belonging to any one particular province, while the other parties have now basically been restricted to various areas. About shadow cabinet, Tehreek-e-Insaf has announced 13 spokespersons representing different disciplines, different areas. Problem is that they are not invited on television. So we can't get our spokespersons on television, which is why you don't know them. But if any party has a team to deal with Pakistan's problem, is Tehreek-e-Insaf, because look, #1 problem in Pakistan faces is tax collection. Our revenues are far less than our expenditures. So this deficit is causing us to borrow money and beg money. In order to deal with the deficit, we have to raise revenues. We can only raise revenues if we can collect taxes. Pakistan has the lowest tax GDP ratio in the world, 9%. And yet Pakistanis are known to pay the highest per capita charity in the world. So this contradiction, a country that is so generous in giving money to charity, and I'm the biggest recipient of charity, why does it give so, why is the tax GDP ratio so low? The reason is people do not trust the government. Already I saw a comment that the government cabinet is disappointed that their appeal to raise money from the people for the floods has completely flopped because no one trusts them. When you have Asif Zardari as the head of the country, it's like asking the cat to guard the milk. So no one trusts the money. So therefore we have the only party that has people who don't need politics, who don't have corruption cases, who have declared their assets. But unfortunately you don't know them. And the problem is, had we had big names, you people might not be sitting here, because you would have seen what is the difference between us and the other parties. So if you want new people, new faces, unfortunately people don't know them. But you need new faces to pull Pakistan out and bring about a change. You cannot bring change with the status quo. But unfortunately, you do not know the new people, but just believe me, no party has the sort of caliber of people that we have got. And in time we will, as the election comes closer and we are allowed to bring out a manifesto, then you will see various Tehreek-e-Insaf faces appearing, some on economy, foreign affairs, the water crisis, the energy crisis. We have papers produced on all these issues.
एक कोई क्वेश्चन है मेरा, लेकिन इससे पहले मैं आपके आंसर देखना चाहूँगी। आपकी कुछ तकरीरें और टॉक शो मुझे याद है जिसमें आपने कहा कि MQM is a terrorist fascist organization, और मेरा बहुत सारे पाकिस्तानियों के साथ ये व्यू है कि पाकिस्तान का बेड़ा गर्क जिसने किया वो मफाहमत और रिकन्सिलिएशन, चोरों के साथ, टेररिस्ट के साथ और आम लोगों के साथ। आपने रिकन्सिलिएशन के लिए दोबारा कोशिश की और जुल्फ़िकार ने जो चीज़ें एक्सपोज की वो बहुत लीथल है पाकिस्तान के लिए। क्या आप उसके बाद भी रिकन्सिलिएशन चाहेंगे? और
इसका जवाब दे दूं, इसका पहले जवाब दे दूं। चलो।
क्वेश्चन मेरा ये है कि आपने कहा कि अल्लामा इकबाल was the founding fathers of Pakistan.
Ideological.
Not fully agree with you. I'm 100% agreeing with you. मैं नहीं जानती कि वो खातून इतनी इम्पोर्टेंट हैं कि आप इतनी इम्पोर्टेंट हो कि आप ही उनको जानते हो, लेकिन वो खातून और एक पूरी फोर्स है जिनका नाम मार्टी सरमद है, वो बैठ के टू नेशन थ्योरी को इररेलेवेंट करार देती हैं। अल्लामा इकबाल has nothing to do with Pakistan. आइडियोलॉजी ऑफ पाकिस्तान के जड़ें उखेड़ी जा रही हैं। आप कह पाएंगे क्या आपका?
मैं पहले आपको दूसरा क्वेश्चन का जवाब दे देता हूं कि देखिए, हर माशरे में ऐसे लोग होते हैं, ये जो लोग हैं, लेकिन ये माइनॉरिटी में है। इस मुल्क में कभी भी अगर कंसेंसस किसी पे है तो दो लोगों पे, एक कायदे आज़म के ऊपर और दूसरा अल्लामा इकबाल पे। तो ये लोग अगर अपोज करते हैं, ये छोटा सा ग्रुप है, ये इररेलेवेंट है। इसके ऊपर आपने अगर अप्लाई करना है तो माइंड ओवर मैटर प्रॉब्लम, वो फिलॉसफी अप्लाई करें। इफ यू डोंट माइंड दे डोंट मैटर। और दूसरा जो आपका पहला क्वेश्चन है मफाहमत का, मैं आपसे बिल्कुल ये समझता हूं कि ये बार बार कहते हैं कि सियासत में कोई हर्ब आखिर नहीं होता, बिल्कुल होना चाहिए। तहरीक-ए-इंसाफ वो पार्टी है, कभी किसी उस जमात से किसी किस्म की मुफाहमत नहीं करेगी, या वो वायलेंस में है जिस तरह MQM है, और या वो करप्ट है जिस तरह ये बाकी पार्टीज हैं। हम इनसे किसी से किसी किस्म की अलायंस नहीं करेंगे। लेकिन अगर आपने एक चीज याद रखें कि ये तासुर नहीं जाना चाहिए हमारी तरफ से कि हम किसी एक एथनिक ग्रुप को टारगेट कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि MQM को करते करते उर्दू स्पीकिंग को ना अलहदा कर दें, क्योंकि उर्दू स्पीकिंग इस कराची के अंदर और पाकिस्तान में भी पर कैपिटा सबसे ज्यादा पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं। वो खुद पकड़े गए हैं MQM की वजह से, वो खुद फंस गए हैं, वो बेचारे एक खौफ के अंदर फंसे हुए हैं। ये टेरर है, ये एक्चुअली टेररिज्म है। टेरर की वजह से वो बेचारे सहमे बैठे होते हैं, बोल नहीं सकते। हमने इनको भी जीतना है। आखिर में ये बेचारे कुर्बानियां दे के आए हैं पाकिस्तान, तो इनको भी हमने साथ मिलाना है। تو ہماری آپ کی پارٹی کی کامیابی یہ ہوگی کہ سارے ملک کو اکٹھا کریں. اس وقت تقسیم ہو رہا ہے ملک, بلوچ ادھر جا رہے ہیں, پٹھان ادھر جا رہے ہیں, وہ کوئی ادھر جا رہا ہے, ہم نے اکٹھا کرنا ہے. اور سوائے آپ کی پارٹی کی اب کوئی نہیں کر سکتا یہ. اس لیے ہمیں تھوڑا سا ذرا عقل سے چلنا ہے. لیکن یہ میں آپ کو گارنٹی کرتا ہوں کسی 2 نمبر پارٹی کے ساتھ تحریک انصاف الائنس نہیں کرے گی. یہ میرے آپ کے وعدہ ہے آپ سے.
ساری قوم کی نظریں آپ پر لگی ہوئی ہیں. آپ جو انگلینڈ میں لوگ رہتے ہیں یا جرمنی میں رہتے ہیں, یہ بھی آپ کے سارے سپورٹ ہیں. ان کا بھی ووٹ کا کوئی حق ہے یا آپ اس کے لیے کوئی کام کر رہے ہیں؟
ان کے لیے تو جی میں ایک ہی چیز کہتا ہوں, بڑا شارٹ آنسر ہے. جتنے پاکستانی باہر ہے پاکستان سے, ان کے لیے اگر انہوں نے بس پاکستان کی مدد کرنی ہے تو ایک کام کریں, تحریک انصاف کو جوائن کر جائیں. اور ووٹ کا بھی ہم نے سپریم کورٹ میں گئے ہوئے ہیں, جس میں ہم نے نئے الیکٹرل رولز ڈیمانڈ کیے ہیں. ہماری پٹیشن سنی ہے سپریم کورٹ نے, اور اس میں ہم یہ بھی ڈال رہے ہیں کہ اوورسیز پاکستانی کو ووٹ کا حق ملنا چاہیے.
Is that Pakistan is the puppet of the West, and the second point that you made is that education erodes fundamentalism. With those in mind, my question is, how do you propose to solve the military problem? And I say that because of this. The military is seemingly the backbone of Pakistan. The largest aid that America gives, even above and beyond Israel, is to Pakistan. The military, on the other hand, is the biggest employer in Pakistan. It is seemingly a meritocracy, the only meritocracy in Pakistan. So I agree with completely the statements that you make, but how do you propose to reconcile the military problem that you have?
Okay. Number one, you mentioned dealing with fundamentalism, not by education. Education, yes. Pakistan has 3 systems of education going parallelly in the country. Number one is English medium for the English, Urdu medium for the masses, and then Dini madrasas. All 3 have nothing to do with each other. So first thing Tehreek Insaf will do is have one education system in Pakistan. So you enable the poor people to get out. Education system in Pakistan is making the rich richer and poor poorer. Education system is leading to injustice in the society, but it is also causing fundamentalism, because fundamentalism is a reaction. Remember, it's a reactionary force. When people feel that their way of life is threatened, they will put up barricades. So education system has a lot to answer for what is happening in Pakistan. But I'm coming back to you. The other question is, what do we do with the military? Well, let me just give you the example of one of the, in the Muslim world at the moment, the best success story, and that is Turkey. In Turkey, the army had done exactly what the Pakistan army had done in Pakistan. Yet, because of one man, one party, his performance, his ability to mobilize the masses and telling them that we are the answers by raising the per capita income of Turkey from $3,500 to $10,000. So once he had the people behind him, he was able to take on the army, and at the moment, I still read today, 3 more army officers are